In the agora of ancient Athens, where philosophers would often gather to exchange wisdom as readily as merchants bartered goods, there lived a well-respected trader named Caius. Caius was known not just for the quality of his wares, but also for his fair dealings and his stoic calm in the face of life's tempests. One day, as the sun beat down upon the crowded marketplace, Caius was approached by a young man, Alexius, who sought to learn the art of trade. Alexius was eager and had a fire in his heart, but he was also quick to anger and swift to judge. "Master Caius," Alexius began with a voice as spirited as the wind, "I wish to be a great merchant like you, but I must know, how do you discern the good customers from the bad? How do you ensure you are not deceived or taken advantage of in your transactions?" Caius smiled gently, the lines upon his face telling of many summers and winters weathered with equanimity. "Come, walk with me," he invited. Click subscriber to this channel to get more profound Stoic wisdom. As they strolled between the stalls, Caius shared his philosophy. "Alexius, the Stoics teach us that virtue is the only true good, and that vice is the only true bad. People, however, are not so easily categorized. It is not our place to label them as good or bad, but to act with virtue in all our dealings." "But how can we do business if we do not judge who is worthy of our trust?" Alexius protested. Caius stopped in front of a stall selling olives and picked one up, examining it thoughtfully. "Consider this olive," he said. "I do not judge the olive. I examine it. I experience its weight, its texture, and its color to determine if it is ripe for selling. I apply the same principle to people. I observe their actions, their words, and their commitments. From these, I discern their character and decide how to deal with them." Unsatisfied, Alexius pondered Caius's words as they continued their walk. Weeks passed, and Alexius began to trade under the mentorship of Caius. He watched Caius navigate the complexities of human interactions with a calm detachment, treating all with fairness and respect, regardless of their status or demeanor. One day, a wealthy and influential man named Demetrius arrived at the agora with his entourage. He was known for his ruthless business tactics, and many merchants whispered of his ill-gotten gains. Demetrius approached Alexius with an offer to buy a large quantity of goods at a price that was profitable but suspiciously urgent. Tempted by the potential sale, Alexius hesitated, recalling Caius's teachings. He sought his mentor's counsel. "Demetrius offers me a great sum for my goods, yet I feel uneasy," Alexius confessed. "Remember, Alexius, the Stoics value the intent behind actions. It is not merely the profit that should concern you, but the manner in which it is made," Caius advised. "Do what you believe is right, not what is merely profitable." In his heart, Alexius knew the sale to Demetrius could compromise his virtue, yet the lure of wealth clouded his judgment. He agreed to the deal. As feared, the transaction with Demetrius led to trouble. The influential man claimed Alexius's goods were subpar, and not only refused to pay the agreed price but demanded compensation for his losses. Alexius's reputation was at stake. Desperate, Alexius sought Caius's aid once more. "Master Caius, I have erred. I sought profit over virtue and am now ensnared by my own greed," he admitted with a heavy heart. Caius listened, his expression as serene as the still surface of a pond. "Alexius, this is a hard lesson from the hands of fortune. You must now face this adversity with courage and integrity, as a true Stoic would." Together, they approached Demetrius to resolve the matter. Caius spoke not with anger but with reasoned argument and an appeal to Demetrius's sense of honor. Surprisingly, Demetrius relented, moved by Caius's words and the young man's evident remorse. The second story, The Echoes of Virtue. In a small village nestled between the rolling hills of ancient Greece, there was a blacksmith known for his wisdom as much as his craftsmanship. His name was Gaius, and his forge was a place of transformation not only for metals, but also for the souls who sought his counsel. One crisp morning, as the dawn stretched its golden fingers across the sky, a young man named Theon arrived at Gaius's door. Theon carried the burdens of life heavily on his shoulders, his eyes searching for answers that seemed as elusive as the wind. "Master Gaius," Theon began, his voice trembling with the weight of unspoken troubles, "I am at a crossroads and I seek your guidance. I have been wronged by someone I trusted, and now I find myself questioning the goodness in others. How can I know who is good and who is bad?" Gaius welcomed Theon into his forge, gesturing to the flames that danced with a life of their own. "Theon, you ask a question that has puzzled many for ages," Gaius said as he worked the bellows, bringing the fire to a roar. "The Stoics believe that it is not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them. To discern the character of another, one must ask not a single question but observe their actions over time." Theon nodded, understanding the wisdom but still feeling lost. "Come," Gaius said, setting aside his tools. "I will tell you a tale." And so Gaius began to weave a story from the threads of his own life. There was once a merchant named Diodorus who traveled far and wide, his heart brimming with ambition. He came upon our village, and his silver tongue quickly enchanted the townsfolk. Diodorus spoke of a grand venture that promised wealth for all who invested. Many were tempted, but Gaius remained cautious. He observed Diodorus's interactions, his promises, and the respect he gave to the concerns of others. It was not long before Gaius noticed a pattern of evasion and half-truths in the merchant's words. Gaius approached Diodorus in the village square, where the merchant held court with his admirers. "Diodorus," Gaius said calmly, the eyes of the villagers upon them, "you speak of profit and opportunity, but tell me, what is your greatest failure and what have you learned from it?" The question hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in innocence. Diodorus faltered, his facade cracking. He could not speak of a single loss or lesson learned. His history was a tapestry of unblemished successes, or so he claimed. Gaius turned to the gathered crowd and spoke with a voice as steady as the earth beneath their feet. "Be wary of those who have never tasted defeat, for they have either avoided the trials of life or have not been truthful about their journey. It is through overcoming adversity that character is revealed and wisdom is gained." The villagers murmured in agreement, their eyes opening to the truth of Gaius's words. In the days that followed, Diodorus's venture was revealed to be a scheme, and those who had heeded Gaius's caution were spared a costly lesson. Theon listened intently, the story's message seeping into his core. "Master Gaius, your story speaks of vigilance and wisdom, but what of my heart, which now fears trust?" Theon asked, his voice a whisper against the clamor of the forge. Gaius placed a hand on Theon's shoulder, his eyes reflecting the glow of the fire. "Trust, like metal, must be tested and forged. Offer it not freely like the air we breathe, but with the discernment of one who knows its value." The forging of trust. As the days turned to weeks, Theon pondered Gaius's words and the story of Diodorus, watching the people around him with a new perspective. He began to see the truth in actions rather than in words, and slowly, his fear of trust started to wane. Yet, Theon's challenge was not over. A traveler arrived in the village, a woman named Elpis, who brought with her tales of faraway lands and a spirit that seemed untarnished by the hardships of the road. She was seeking aid for her village, which had been struck by a calamity. Her presence stirred the hearts of the villagers, and once again, Theon found himself amidst a crowd caught between skepticism and the desire to help. Theon watched Elpis closely, remembering the lesson from Gaius's story. Elpis, unlike Diodorus, did not boast of guaranteed returns. Instead, she shared her experiences, the challenges her people faced, and her own efforts to help them. She did not shy away from speaking of the times she had failed and what those failures had taught her. One day, as Elpis was gathering supplies, Theon approached her. "Elpis," he said, his eyes reflecting his internal struggle, "I want to believe in your cause, but how can I be sure that my trust will not be misplaced?" Elpis met his gaze, her eyes steady and kind. "Theon," she replied, "trust is not given blindly. It is a seed that grows with mutual respect and understanding. Look at my actions, hear my words, and then decide if I am worthy of your trust." Theon considered her response, and in the following days, he observed Elpis as she worked alongside the villagers, sharing her knowledge and aiding with their tasks. She did not stand apart as a savior, but joined in as one of them. Theon sought out Gaius to share what he had witnessed. "Master Gaius," Theon began, his heart lighter than it had been in seasons, "Elpis is unlike any traveler who has passed through our village. She works not for personal gain, but for the benefit of others. I have seen her actions align with her words." Gaius nodded, a knowing smile on his face. "Theon, you have learned well. You have discovered that to know someone's heart, one must observe not just a moment but the sum of their actions. Elpis has shown you her virtue, not through grand promises, but through her consistent deeds." Buoyed by Gaius's affirmation, Theon decided to aid Elpis, offering not only supplies but also his skills to help her village. In this act of trust, he found not the anxiety of before but a sense of peace and purpose. Months passed, and news from Elpis's village spoke of recovery and gratitude. Theon's support had been pivotal, and the bond between the two villages grew strong. Theon realized that his fear had not been a barrier but a signpost, guiding him towards a deeper understanding of trust. Trust is a treasure that must be earned and given with discernment. It is not the absence of betrayal that defines the good in others, but the presence of consistent, virtuous action. One who understands this can navigate the uncertainties of human relationships with wisdom, preserving their inner peace while extending the hand of fellowship. Theon's story teaches us that by observing others with a careful eye and a patient heart, we can forge trust that is as strong and enduring as the finest metal from Gaius's forge. The third story, the measure of intent. In the heart of modern Athens, a teenager named Alexios grappled with the complexities of growing up. His school, a melting pot of characters, was his daily arena, where philosophies and ethics were tested more vigorously than in any ancient agora. Alexios had a friend, Nico, who was as charismatic as he was enigmatic. They had grown up together, sharing memories and milestones, but as adolescence beckoned, a troubling shift began. Nico started to walk a fine line between mischief and malfeasance. and Alexios felt torn between loyalty and the stirrings of his conscience. One day, as they walked home from school, Nico presented a plan. "Alexios, I found a way to make some easy money," Nico said, his eyes alight with secretive glee. "There's a test next week, and I've got the answers. We could sell them." Alexios's heart sank. "Nico, that's wrong. And what if we get caught?" Nico laughed. "Don't be so dramatic. It's a victimless crime." That night, Alexios lay in his bed, the Stoic teachings of his grandfather echoing in his mind. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak," his grandfather would say, quoting Epictetus. But listening to Nico's plan had filled Alexios with unease. The following day at school, Alexios sought advice from his philosophy teacher, Miss Sophia, who was known for guiding her students through moral quandaries with Socratic grace. "Miss Sophia," Alexios began, "how can I know if someone is good or bad? My friend wants to do something wrong, but he doesn't see it that way." Miss Sophia regarded him thoughtfully. "Alexios, the Stoics teach us to focus not on words but actions and to discern the intent behind them. A person's character is revealed through their choices, especially when those choices are difficult." "But what if I've known them all my life?" Alexios asked, his voice strained with confusion. "People change, Alexios, and sometimes we must have the courage to question what we see, even in a friend," Miss Sophia replied with gentle firmness. The test of character came swiftly. The day of the scheme's execution arrived, and Nico's plan unfolded just as he had described. But as Nico handed Alexios a stack of answer sheets, the sound of approaching footsteps froze them. It was Miss Sophia, her disappointment more piercing than any punishment. "Follow me, boys," she said, leading them not to the principal's office, but to a quiet classroom. The weight of choices. Miss Sophia sat Alexios and Nico down, her gaze not angry but immeasurably sad. "I will not ask if you did this," she began, "for I see the answers in your hands and the guilt in your eyes. I will ask why, and I want you to think deeply before you answer." Nico, defiant at first, tried to justify their actions. "It's just a test. It doesn't harm anyone." "But it does, Nico," Miss Sophia countered. "It harms you. It diminishes your integrity, and it betrays the trust of your classmates and teachers." She turned to Alexios. "And you, Alexios? Why are you a part of this?" Alexios's voice was a mere whisper. "I didn't want to disappoint my friend." "Stoicism teaches us that our first loyalty is to virtue," Miss Sophia said. "To be good, to do good, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That is the essence of character." The room was silent, but for the distant laughter of students unaware of the drama unfolding within its walls. "Nico, Alexios, I will give you a choice. You may leave now, go to the principal, and face the consequences of your actions. Or you can sit here with me, and we will talk about virtue, about trust, and about what it means to be truly good." Nico scoffed. "You're going to lecture us?" "Not a lecture," Miss Sophia corrected. "I will guide you. The Stoics believed in the power of mentorship and reflection. You will make your own choice after our conversation. But know this, the decision you make will echo in the person you become." Nico, looking at his feet, finally nodded. Alexios, his heart lighter, agreed. For the next hour, Miss Sophia spoke of Socrates and his unyielding quest for virtue, of Epictetus and his emphasis on the inner fortress of character, and of Marcus Aurelius, who, despite the weight of an empire, strived to be a good man. She spoke of trust not as an expectation but as a sacred bond, one that must be nurtured and never taken for granted. As the conversation unfolded, the boys' defensiveness began to crumble. They saw their actions not as a mere transgression, but as a betrayal of their own potential for goodness. In the end, Nico and Alexios walked to the principal's office together, not because they were led, but because they chose to. They accepted the consequences, which were severe but fair. In the months that followed, Nico and Alexios worked hard to regain the trust they had lost. They volunteered their time, helped their classmates, and engaged in their studies with a newfound respect. Alexios' relationship with Nico changed as well. They remained friends, but Alexios learned to set boundaries, to stand firm in his values, even when it meant disagreeing with those he cared about. And so, the problem of the test scheme became a profound turning point in their lives. It was a lesson not only in the consequences of choices, but also in the resilience of virtue. Goodness is not a static trait, but a dynamic choice, one that must be made anew each day. Trust is a reflection of consistent actions aligned with moral virtue. To know if someone is good or bad, we must observe their intentions through the lens of their deeds, understanding that true character is revealed not in ease but in adversity. In the crucible of challenge, the decision to uphold integrity is the true measure of goodness. Through the echoes of their experience, Alexios and Nico learned that the fabric of character is woven with the threads of difficult choices, and it is through these choices that the virtues of trust and goodness are truly forged.